Remember that scene in On Golden Pond where you say, you know, can't we be friends?
Mm.
And you have said it's the hardest scene you ever had to do.
Yeah, it was. It was hard, and it was the actor's nightmare too, because we did it from the first moment that we rehearsed it, all the way through the master and his close-up. I was so full, and when the time came for my close-up, I dried up. It was not there, and it was Katharine Hepburn. I said to her, "Katharine, I need help, and don't tell Dad." And she knew exactly what I meant, and she hid. She stood in the bushes in back of me off camera. And I turned and I looked into her eyes, and she did this. And it was in character as my mother, because, you know, in the scene right before, she said to me, "Talk to him. Just tell him. Talk to him." And I said, "I'm scared." She said, "Do it." And it was Kate Hepburn to Jane Fonda saying, "I know what this means to you, and by God, you turn around and you tell him." And you did. I get emotional thinking about it, and she fed me. I could feel it coming from her right into me. It was wonderful.
Has there ever been in your life, Jane, a woman mentor, a guide, a famous, not famous, makes no difference, a mother, a sister, anybody, who really was a very special person in shaping you?
No, there has not been a mentor. I think I probably would be very different if there had been, and I wish there were. Although I can't pretend to be a friend of hers or know her well, I learned a lot from Katharine Hepburn on Golden Pond. But I haven't been, growing up, I have not been very close to women.
You have said that getting Katharine Hepburn was one of the keys to getting the picture made. It was difficult, apparently, too.
Well, we couldn't get insurance because my dad was so sick.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted to make the movie. I mean, who wants to make a movie about a couple of old guys and a young kid? And nobody wanted to. We had to go to England to get money. And it all had to be done in a limited amount of time in the summer, and it was critical that she be in it. They'd never met before, actually. And I wasn't present when they met. I was traveling through Appalachia with Dolly Parton. Katharine never forgave me that I wasn't there. And the first time I met her, you know what the first words she said to me were? "I don't like you."
Because you hadn't been
God
there.
hath spoken. Okay, now it's my turn. In my big scene in the movie that means so much to me because of the personal part of it, and I turn, and I'm dry. I am drier than a you-know-what. I am. There's nothing. There's nothing. What am I going to do? Where is Lee Strasberg now that I need him? What sense memory can I... What can I... All the songs that I usually can sing that will make... Nothing was working. I was so scared. So they were lighting it, and I was waiting on the shore, and who shows up but Kate? She's not even supposed to be there that day. How are things going, Jane? And I said, I'm dry. Don't tell Dad. Okay, the camera's ready. You know, it's one of those things that we wish everyone would drown for about a year, and you wouldn't have to. But they were ready, and the time was, and I was just so scared. And I said to Mark, I said, I'm going to turn my back to the camera and prepare, and when I turn around, then, you know, start to film, not having any idea what I was going to do. So I turned my back to the camera. The boat is here. The bushes are here. I look up, and there is Kate, crouching in the bushes. Like this. It was mother to daughter. You can do it. You can do it, Jane. Come on. It was older actress to younger actress, and she's been there and she knows. And it was woman to woman, and she willed me with her eyes and her fists. She willed me into that scene. So listen to this. The next day, I called Kate, Katharine Hepburn. I never called her Kate, Miss Hepburn. I called her to congratulate her. Her first words to me, "You'll never catch me now." I didn't get it for a second, and then I realized we went into this. I had 2, she had 3. If she hadn't won and I had, we'd be tied, so I could have then beaten her.
You know, you did On Golden Pond with Katharine Hepburn, and I did a few interviews with her, and, you know, what a...
Talk about prickly.
Talk about prickly. And she saw things in black and white.
Yeah.
At one point I said I had been in the Middle East a lot, and I said, I don't see things in black and white, I see things in gray. And she said, well, I pity you. Okay. But the reason that I'm bringing this up is that she'd said to me, and perhaps to you...
She did, yes.
Can't have children and have a career. I shouldn't do the imitation. If I had little Johnny or little Katie Wright, I'd want to smother the children.
Then there was On Golden Pond.
And then 1981, On Golden Pond.
Yes.
People forget what a daring film it was to make back then. I mean, it's not a film that in 1981 you would normally think maybe people were going to pack in to see.
No, I went
So,
to...
talk about the
all
process.
the studios turned it down. Even though Henry Fonda, Katharine Hepburn, and I were in it. They didn't want to make a movie about 2 old folks and some kid. We had to go to Europe, and Sir Lou Grade, Gold Key Entertainment, put up the money for it, and we all had to work for scale because we couldn't get any insurance because my father was sick. So we all worked for very, 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 very little, and we shot it over the summer at Squam Lake in New Hampshire. And it was funny because we hadn't even, Dad had agreed to do it, of course, and I hadn't yet contacted Katharine Hepburn. One day the office phone rang and it was, hello, this is Kate Hepburn. She just assumed she was going to do this movie and told us where we had to shoot it, and that we had to, you know, shoot it here and not there like that, and it was like, wow. So there were these 2 things going on during the course of that film. There was the fact that I was working with my father, who was going to die soon, and there was the fact of working with Kate Hepburn, who I never called Kate. I'm surprised that even came out of my mouth right now, Ms. Hepburn, who didn't like me very much. Although she did say, you and I are really quite alike, Jane, you know.
Now, why didn't she like you?
She was so competitive. It was very threatening for her, which it took me a while to understand, because for me she was a legend. But I was younger, and I was more of a box office star at that particular point in time, and I was producing the movie for my father, and she was always making sure that I was being put in my place.
Really?
But she taught me so much. She knew I was scared of doing the backflip, terrified, and she challenged me, and I took the challenge, and I forced myself to learn to do a backflip. And I would do it over and over and over again, always scared, bruised. And when I finally managed to get around, at least once, I crawled out of the water, and she was hiding in the bushes, watching. And she came to me, and she said, you've taught me to respect you, Jane. She said, you faced your fears, and that's the most important thing in life. Otherwise, you'll become soggy. Soggy. She said, you have to raise your children not to get soggy. And believe me, from then on, when something frightens me and I'm thinking, I think, don't want to get soggy. There's also, though, this part of her. She wanted me to have stories that I could tell about her after she died.
Oh, that's interesting.
I know.
That's interesting.
Yes.
Wow.
And she made sure I did. I'll tell you another story. Now, I've told this story a lot. I can't pretend this is new. But, you know, I'd mentioned earlier, my dad just made tremendous fun of me that I studied with Lee Strasberg, okay? So we're shooting a scene in the movie where Dad and Kate are playing Parcheesi, and I'm sitting on the couch reading. And at some point, Kate says, "Why don't you come and play with us?" And my father says something hostile.
Chelsea doesn't like playing games. We don't know why. Probably doesn't like losing.
And I say to him, something hostile.
I tend to panic when the competition gets too intense.
What's that supposed to mean?
Nothing.
So we shoot my close-up first. And when we get everything lit and we're ready to go, and I realize there's so many lights, I can't see his eyes. So I ask them, the cinematographer, to put light on his eyes so I can see him, okay? We shoot the scene. Reverse. Now it's on his close-up. And just before we shoot, I say, "Is it okay, Dad? Can you see my eyes?" And he says, "I don't have to see your eyes. I'm not that kind of actor." And I remember being conscious of this thing happening where one half of me died, was obliterated. My father could still do that to me, just wiped me out. And the other half of me was, yes, this is exactly what Chelsea should be feeling at this moment.
What I'd like to know is why you enjoy playing games.
Huh?
You seem to like beating people. I wonder why.
It was the end of the day, and Dad left. I was sitting on the couch. I just felt awful. And suddenly I felt these arms going around me. It was Kate. And she sat down next to me and she said, "Don't let him get to you." She says, "I know just how you feel." She said, "Spencer used to do that to me all the time. You know, it would be his close-up in a love scene. I don't need you. You can go home." They have no idea, she'd say. They don't know how much those words can hurt you. Don't let it hurt you. And the fact that she had witnessed my pain and was acknowledging it meant the world to me.
What's the matter, darling? Nothing. I don't think I've ever grown up on Golden Pond. Do you understand? No, I don't think I understand. Doesn't matter. I act like a big person everywhere else. I'm in charge of Los Angeles, and I come here, I feel like a little fat girl.
That's just because your father said that.
Now, you talked at certain times you didn't watch rushes.
I don't watch it. Oh.
Do you now?
No, here's a story. Okay, I'm producing on Golden Pond, and I'm going to all the rushes, and I notice that Hepburn's not coming to the rushes. And I'm thinking, the Hepburn that I have heard about always went to rushes, noticed that. So I said, "Miss Hepburn, why aren't you going to rushes?" And she said, "Jane, when I did Lion in Winter, I was still going to rushes, and I began to notice that I was only paying attention to my wrinkles and not to what was good for the movie. And I've never gone since then," she said. So after 15 years of being out of the business, when I did Monster-in-Law, I said, "I'm not going to rushes." And it's really nice. You have a whole extra amount of time to do your own life. You know, I wrote about, I think a lot about Katharine Hepburn. She took seriously the role of elder. She took me under her wing and passed on her wisdom to me. And
this happened when you were making on Golden Pond?
When we were making on Golden Pond.
You didn't know her very well before that?
I didn't know her at all. I'd never met her before.
And she took you under her wing?
Yeah. I mean, she was prickly. It wasn't always easy. But, you know, I read a wonderful book, maybe you know it, by Viktor Frankl called Man's Search for Meaning. And one of the things that he says in it is that if architects want to strengthen an old arch, they put more weight on it. And that's, you know, I think of Katharine Hepburn. She was an old arch that carried a lot of weight, of wisdom, wanting to be a teacher. When you have that in you as an older person, you tend to be happier.
Grave, you mentioned your father. I mean, just watching that performance on Golden Pond, I mean, I think, was that an Oscar for him?
Yeah. It was his only Oscar, and he died 5 months later.
His daughter gave him the opportunity to do something.
And he took it. And she got one, too. You know, the last thing she said to me, I called her because she didn't go to the awards. My father was too sick to go, and I called her the next day to congratulate her. for winning the Oscar. You'll never catch me now. At first, I didn't even know what she was referring to, and then I realized, oh, that's right. I had 2, and she had 3. And if I had won, we would have been tied. But now she had 4, and I had 2. There was no way I was going to catch up with her. What a character.
The most important thing you learned from Katharine Hepburn when she took you...
Don't get soggy. Confront your fears, or you'll become soggy. She did a lot for me. She witnessed me. She witnessed my relationship with my father, and she had compassion around that.
Did she try to get involved?
Only insofar as she said to me, he doesn't realize how much he hurts you. Spence was the same way. She was great. She was great. I think I learned more from Hepburn during the making of that movie. I mean, she was one of these women, and it's so great. When you get older, you become an elder, and she took that very seriously about teaching to younger people. And she took me, I can't say under her wing because she didn't like me very much. But she didn't. But
I don't think she ever liked anybody a whole lot.
Well, that could be. She didn't like me because I was married, because I had children. She thought actors never should have children, and I had a pet. She preferred people who had absolutely no attachment, except to her.
That's right.
But she had a greatness about her, and she taught me a lot. And
what would you think, like, what one thing she taught you was... I read that she made you jump into the lake.
She made me do the dive myself.
Yes.
I had no intention of doing that.
And it was icy cold?
She also...
Well, what did she say to make you do that? Did she just shame you into it?
Well, it all happened the first time I met her, where it was all ready to go, and I came to where she lived in New York, and the first thing she said to me was, I don't like you. And there were reasons why she said that, and once we've got that out of the way, the next question was, are you going to do the backflip yourself? Well, following on the heels of I don't like you, I was not going to tell her that, no, I was not going to do the backflip. There was a double already lined up. And besides, I suddenly remembered her dive in the Philadelphia Story. So I said, of course I'm going to do the dive myself. Well, when I finally did, it took me a month of rehearsals, and it was never a good dive. But she would hide in the bushes and watch me. And when I finally did it one time, I did it better than it's actually in the movie. She praised me and told me that I'd taught her to respect me. So that was real important.
Oh, that's great.